Hey, what's up guys, back again with another video in the Spigot series. This time I'm going to show you how to make a random teleport plugin. Yeah guys, so this episode we're going to be making the random teleport plugin, which is a very simple plugin, but it's actually kind of complex in some ways. Well, basically it's going to allow you to execute a command like /RTP, and what that will do is teleport the player to a random location inside the world, and yeah. So let's go ahead and jump right into it. First thing we want to do is open this up, of course, so we can see all our files and everything. Let's go ahead and create a new package here to hold our commands. And then we're not going to have any events in this plugin, so we don't need an events package. But yeah, let's go ahead and create a new command. We'll call it random teleport command, or just random TP command, I guess. That works too. And so this will be for that, of course, so they can run the teleport command. And of course, it's going to implement command executor. There we go. Alright, so now let's implement on command, and then have it return true. So basically they're going to type a command like this, for example, so /RTP, and then that's going to bring them to here, of course. And then what we want it to do is get the player to teleport to a random location within the world, okay? And we want to set some bounds. So we don't want the player to teleport literally anywhere in the world, because a world is only so many blocks big, and some places you don't want your player to go in case you don't want them to go outside a certain region or something like that, or like you don't want to have to render a lot of blocks for your world or anything like that, right? So sometimes we want to limit how far they can spawn, so that's also something we want to work with. So let's just go ahead and check and see if the player executed this command, because yeah, because why not? So if sender instance of player, there we go, import player, and then now we can get an instance of player, of course. So player equals player sender. Alright, pretty simple, right? So now what we want to do pretty much is simply generate a random location for the player to be able to spawn to, right? So that's going to be the hard part in terms of like safety, because if you think about it, what if we accidentally, spawn a player like within lava, or like if we spawn them in the ground or something like that? So we need to find a system or develop a system for safely determining a location for them to spawn in, okay? But just to start off, we're going to find a random location first, and then we'll worry about the safety later. So to do that, we're going to have to make a new location. So let's go ahead and try that. So we'll make a location, we'll call it random, oops, import that, there we go. So location random is equal to new location, and so what are the parameters here? So we need a world, so we can get the player's world, obviously, so player.getWorld. Pretty simple. And now we need an XYZ. So we need to generate an XYZ value for our random location, so we could do that here. So let's just go and make 3 variables for the XYZ. So we could do int x is equal to 0, int y is equal to 0, and then int z is equal to 0, okay? And then of course, instead of 0, we want to generate random coordinates, right? So how do we generate some random coordinates, right? So that means we need to generate random numbers, and there's a really cool class that you can use within Java. It's called random, and it allows you to do just that. So random, we'll call it random. We're just making a new instance of random object, so it equals random. And so like I said, this will allow you to generate a random number, so we could use random. So let's say we want to generate a random number between 0 and like 1000, okay? So let's try doing that. So we'll do random.nextInt, and then all you got to do is plug in the value that you want to put it in. So like 1000 in this case, so that will basically generate a number between 0 and 1000, or it should at least, okay? So that's what that should do. And for the y value, that doesn't really matter, of course, because it's, later on we're going to have to determine a safe y value, so we don't make sure they don't spawn underground and something like that, or something like that. So for now, we'll just set it to 150, just for testing purposes. And so now, right here, for the z, we also want to set it to 1000, so we'll do random.nextInt 1000. So that should work perfectly. So now we have a random set of x, y, z values, except for the y, of course, which isn't too important yet. But the x and z are now pretty random, if you ask me. So now we just go ahead and plug them in. So x, y, and the z. There we go. So now those values are set, and then we have an error here that says variable random is already defined in the scope. Oh yeah, because we have 2 variables here called random. That's not good. So we'll say random location, just like that. So now we're generating a random location. So now that we have our random location, we set it to x, y, z within this world here. Let's go ahead and spawn the player to that location. So we'll do player.getWorld, or can we set the location? No, there's actually a method called teleport. I forgot. Yeah, there we go. So we'll do .teleport random location, so that will teleport the player to that location, and that should work. So yeah, that's pretty much it for that command. It's very simple. Well, for now at least. We're just going to test it out now. So we'll go ahead and register this into our main method here. or our main class at least, not the main method, but you get the point. So get command, we'll just call it RTP like I said, set executor, new random command, RandomTP command, which is going to be the method that, or the class that holds our command, of course. Pretty simple, we've already done all of this. If you don't know what the heck I'm doing, you can watch my other episodes. There's 25 or 26 episodes before this. Yeah, 25. Anyway, so now we want to make or go into the plugin.yml and then add our commands here. So commands, what's it called, RTP, description, randomly teleports a player to a random location. Pretty simple. And then usage, we could just say that, just the standard, just like that, okay? So that should be all good for that. We, made the command and then we registered and all that fun stuff. So let's go ahead and test it out. So open up Maven here and then click run. And now once that's done doing everything, I'm going to add it to the server and I'll be right back. Alright, I'm on the server. I reloaded the server also so the plugin would load. So we can go ahead and test it out now. So we'll try doing that. So /RTP. And boom, we have been spawned in a random location and we're falling from the sky. Because of course we set it to teleport them to the Y of 150. So it's going to spawn in the air, of course, because 150 is pretty high up. So if we go ahead and watch the coordinates, if you look on the screen right here, we have the XYZ. So if you watch that, let's watch it. Let's see what happens. So RTP, as you can see here, it went to 150 instantly because, of course, our location is going to be 150 every time in terms of the Y. But for these, you can see that they stay within the bounds of 1000, of course, because we set them to generate a number between 0 and 1000. So they're never going to go below or above that. So we can do /RTP again, and forever you're going to get a number between 0 and 1000 for the X and the Z, because that's what we told it to do, right? Pretty cool. So now what we want to do here is try and find a safe location for our spawning. But actually what I want to do here is make a new class. It's going to be a new class. We've never done something like this before, but it's pretty simple. We're going to make a new class. It's going to be called teleport utilities, or just teleport utils. And what it's going to do here is hold some basic methods for us that we can use within our plugin here. So it doesn't need to extend or implement anything. We're just going to open it up. And basically, like I said, it's going to hold our methods here. It's going to hold some very important methods that we're going to use within the plugin. So the first thing we want to make is a method. We'll call it generate location. So this will be the method that generates the location like we did here. So instead of having the code inside of here, we could simply make a method inside of here, and then we can call upon that method within here, so the code is more structured, okay? So we'll go ahead and make that. So we're going to do public static, and we're going to make a static so that we don't have to make a new instance of teleport utilities every time we want to use this method, of course, right? And it's going to return a location because we're generating a new location every time, so we want to return that location for us to use. So public static location and then generate location. It's going to be the name, so generate location, and then we want to pass in the player, so we can get the player's world, of course, because as you can see here, we need to get the player.getWorld, so we want to get an instance of player, so we can use that and stuff like that. So anyway, we're passing player as a parameter, that's fine, and then now we can open this up and move the code that we just made here. So we'll do that. So we'll do random. We'll just cut this and then we'll put it in here. Okay. That's going to import everything. So now what we can do here is just return random location. So after it's generated the X, Y, and Z and then set it into this random location that we just created, we're going to return the random location so that we can use it here, right? So now we can go ahead and try that out. So we'll do player.teleport, and we could simply do teleport utilities dot generate location and then pass in player just like that. So that's going to do all of the same thing that we just did 2 seconds ago, except that it's more structured in the sense that we can just call upon a method every time we want to generate a safe location, or a new location, I mean, right? Pretty cool. Hopefully that's not too complex for you guys. But now let's go about, finding a safe Y for them to use. Instead of using 150 every time, let's spawn them on the ground, right? Or on the top, because we don't want to spawn them in the ground, right? That would be very bad. We're going to suffocate the player. So there's actually a really cool method that we can use to do just that. It's called get highest block at, and it's going to get the highest Y coordinate where you can spawn a player safely on the top of the surface, right? So that's going to be useful. So we can go ahead and do that right now. The only thing is you have to use a location to obtain the safe Y of that location. So we need to reset it after. Let me show you. So basically we're going to do Y is equal to random location, right? The location that we just created. So random location dot get world. So we're going to get the world, and then dot get highest block at Y, or get highest block Y at, and then we just pass in the location that we want to find the block at. So we'll do random location. So like I said, what that's going to do is get the highest block or actually we can do Control Q here, and it tells us exactly what it's going to do. It's going to get the Y coordinate of the lowest block at the given location such that the block and all blocks above it are transparent for lighting purposes. So what that means is that basically it's going to find the lowest block at the given location, but it still needs to have blocks above it for lighting purposes. So basically what that means is just going to find the highest block on the surface, right? So as you can see here, we set Y equal to this new Y coordinate that we just found. So now we need to change this location to use this new Y that we just, changed, right? So we can simply do random location dot set Y and then just plug in Y like that. So now the random location has the new Y that we just found, okay? And now of course we're returning here, so that's what that should do. And now it's going to generate and teleport the player and all that fun stuff. So anyway, let's go ahead and run this and test it out. Alright, so we're on the server. I reloaded, so let's go ahead and test it out. RTP, boom, and now we're on the surface, in the water, on the surface, oops, on the surface. So it pretty much works, right? We're not spawning in the air every time. Instead, we're spawning on the surface of the world. That's exactly where we want the player to be, because if they spawn in the air and they're not in creative, they're obviously going to die. So we don't want that for our players. And of course, like I said, we don't want them to spawn in the ground either, okay? So awesome. That's much better than we had before. So the next step I want to do is basically we want to determine if the block that they're about to spawn in is safe before they spawn in the block, okay? So what I mean is that let's say they find a safe surface block, right? Like we just did a second ago. What if that surface block is lava, okay? Our program does not know that lava is unsafe, so we need to make a mechanism to check that block and the blocks around it where we're about to spawn to see if it's safe before we spawn the player into that location. And if it's not safe, we can go ahead and generate a new random location and just repeat that until it finds a safe one, right? So that's pretty cool, so let's try that out. So the first thing we want to do here is go back here, and let's just go ahead and create a new method here. So this is going to be public static boolean. It's going to be a boolean so we can get a true or false of whether it's safe or not. So public boolean, and then we're going to call it is location safe. So if the location is safe, then we're going to return true. If it's not, we're not going to return true. So anyway, we want a parameter here. It's going to be the actual location that we want to test, test to see if it's safe or not. So location, there we go. And so now what we want to do here is get the blocks around where the player might spawn, right? So let's get the block that they're directly going to spawn in. So we're just going to call it block. Oops, just import that. So block is equal to location dot get world dot get block at, and then now we want to pass in the XYZ of that block, right? Instead of just passing in location, we want to pass in XYZ because we're going to be checking the blocks around it. You'll see in a second. But anyway, so we want to get the XYZ of the block's location, so we can do that like this. So we're just going to do int x is equal to location dot get block x, and then int y is equal to location dot get block y, and then likewise int z is equal to location dot get block z. And then now we can just pass in just like this, x, y, z. And then now it's going to get the block at where the player would spawn theoretically. So it's going to get that block, and then let's also get the block under that, and also let's get the block above it, so we can make sure that all the blocks pretty much except for the left and right are safe. But yeah, let's go ahead and do that. So block below is equal to location dot get world get world dot get block at x, y, z. And instead of leaving it like this, because that would be the same as this one, we want to get the block under the block that this one is, right? We want to get the block under this one. So we'll just do y minus 1, right? So y, of course, is the coordinate for height. So if we go down 1, that's going to be the block under the block that we're checking, right? So that's how that works. And then now let's check the block above. So block above is equal to location dot get world, and then get block at x, and then y plus 1. So we get the block above the block that they would spawn in, and blah blah blah, right? So now that we have instances of the blocks that are around the player where they would spawn theoretically, we want to check and see if those blocks are safe or not for them to spawn in, right? So we can return true or false whether that is true or not, or if it's safe, but if false if it's not safe, right? So we'll do return, and then inside of here we're gonna have to make it so that it returns true or false. So we could do, so the first thing I want to do is make a list of all the blocks that we do not want the player to spawn inside of, okay? So for example, lava, we don't want the player to spawn within lava. So let's go ahead and make an array list or something up here. We'll make a hash map. So we'll make a hash map up here, or a hash set rather. Hash sets are nice. So we're gonna make a variable up here just for that, or an object really. So we're gonna call it public static hash set, and that's gonna store blocks, of course. Or actually, we're gonna store materials. So like material.lava. So hash set material, import material. We'll give a name of bad blocks. So these are all the bad blocks that we don't want within our plugin, of course, or the player to spawn in, I mean. So new hash set, just like that. So this is going to be a hash set to store all the blocks. So we can't actually do bad_blocks.add for some reason. So instead, we're just going to initialize it, or use a constructor to initialize the value of bad blocks every time that this class is called upon, right? Because it's static technically, because all the methods within this class are static. So whenever any of these methods are used, it's going to call upon this constructor here. So static, just like that. So static, and then badblocks.add, and we could add any material that we want to. So material.lava, you know, stuff like that. And just for testing purposes, we're going to add a grass block to this list so we can make sure that it works, because the chance of us spawning randomly in lava is actually extremely low, obviously, because there's not that much surface lava anyway. So we're going to use a grass block, right? So if it does not let us spawn in a grass block, that means that it worked correctly, right? So now we can go down here and check and see if block is one of the, you know, the items that are on this list, right? So we can do badblocks.contains, and then we could pass in block just like that. So if the block that we're about to spawn on top of is a lava block, or a grass block in this case, then it won't allow us. It'll return false, because of course this is a not operator, so that means it's, you know, not. Anyway, so that's what that's going to do. But actually we want to get the type of that block, so because right now it's a block object, right? But of course we're checking to see if it's the material of grass block. So now we want to do block.getType, so that's going to return a material. So we're checking the material. So if the block that we're about to spawn on top of is a grass block, then do not return true, return false. And then besides that, we want to check these also. So we can go ahead and do if it's a grass block, or if block.getType is solid. So if they're about to spawn in a solid block, and then do not spawn them in that block. So getType.get is solid, there we go. So if the block that they're about to spawn in is solid, then do not spawn them in that block. Oh, I made a mistake, by the way. This would be below, because we're checking to see if the block up below them is, you know, a grass block or not, because they're going to be standing on that block, right? But yeah, but this one we want to check and see if it's solid, of course, because this is going to be the block that they're basically inside of, right? So if they spawn within a solid block, that means that they're going to suffocate, right? So that's going to check that one. And then finally, we want to check and see if the above block is also solid, because the block above them needs to be air, of course, right? So above dot, well, we'll do it within, we need to surround these by parentheses, boom, and then boom. So above dot get type dot is solid. So that's going to check and see if the block above is solid also. And I know this is a really big like a line of code here. It's kind of confusing, but just pause the video and try and go through it slowly if you need to. But anyway, that's going to return true if the location is safe, but it's going to return false if it's not safe. So that should work perfectly. So let's go and try this out. So we want to test it out here. So we want to do so what we want to do here is, before we return a random location to the player after we generate a random location, we want to make sure that that location is safe. So we can do something like this. So if is location safe, and then we just plug in the location that we just created. So random location, if location is safe, random location, then go ahead and return a random location, right? And if not, then go ahead and return, let's make a dummy location just for testing purposes. Location dummy equals new location, and then we'll just plug in player.getWorld 0, 0, 0. So basically what that is going to do here is check and see if the location that we just generated is safe, right? And if it is safe, it's going to return true, obviously. So that means it's going to return that location to the player. And there we go. But if it's not safe, else, then we want to just respawn them at 0, 0, 0, okay? So that they know that the location that they were going to spawn in was not safe, okay? And we're just doing this for testing purposes. So return dummy. There we go. So that should work. So let's just put this inside of the else. So else, just so I can feel safe about that. So anyway, I know that was a lot. So let's go and test it out to make sure that this might work or not. Alright, so we're back. We're going to test it out now. So RTP, we spawn in water. RTP, we spawn on sand. RTP. RTP, RTP. Oh, I just fell through the world somehow. I have no idea how that's possible. That's weird. Just a glitch, I guess. So RTP, RTP, RTP. And as you can see here, we're not spawning on grass any of the times, right? But we did just spawn on 0, 0, 0, I think. Wait, let's test it out. RTP. No, we didn't. Okay, so RTP. There we go. Now we're on 0, 0, 0. That's why we fell through the ground. Okay, that makes sense. So basically, we found a grass block, right? and that was not safe, so that means it's going to teleport us to 0, 0, 0, right, because it's not safe. So that's pretty cool. So that means it worked. And of course, we're only here because it's, that's the respawn. But anyway, so yeah, it worked. We're able to check and see if the location is safe or not. And if it is safe, then we'll just spawn them to that location. And if it's not safe, then we're gonna, or if it's grass, if it's not safe, it's just gonna spawn as 0, 0, 0, which is under the world, pretty much, right? So that is awesome. So now what we want to do here is, instead of generating us or spawning us under the world if it's not safe, let's just go ahead and loop through until we can find a safe location, right? So instead of killing us, we want to just, look for another safe location, right? That's probably a good idea, right? So let's go ahead and do that. So basically what we want to do here is, let's just get rid of this, and then we're just going to do while, so while the location is not safe, so while is location safe random location. So while it's not safe, to make it not, we'll just put that in front. So while it's not safe, then we want to generate a new random location, right? So we'll just do random location is equal to generate random location player. So basically every time it comes back as an unsafe location, we're just going to generate a new random location, right? And then finally, once it's done running this loop, meaning that it found a safe location, then we'll just go ahead and return the random location. There we go. So hopefully that makes sense. So let's go ahead and run this and test it out. Alright, so we're reloading now. We'll do /RTP. And we're in the water. And the tree. Boom. And as you can see here, we're still not spawning within grass. We're only spawning in other blocks that are not grass. And they are safe. Also, we're not spawning under the world because, of course, we're simply telling it to find a new location if it cannot find a safe location, instead of spawning us at 0, 0, 0. So that works perfectly, right? So now let's go ahead and remove grass from the unsafe list so we can make sure that it works without that. So we'll just change this to like lava, right? So lava, there we go. And then we'll also do fire, so we don't want them to spawn within fire. So add material.fire. There we go, that's cool. So now we'll run this and test it out to make sure we can still spawn on grass safely. Okay, so we're reloading here. Boom, RTP. And then now, let's see if it spawns us on grass. No. Grass? Is that grass? I can't tell. It should spawn us on grass. It's not doing it though. That's weird. Oh, there we go. Finally, we got some grass. Okay, so that means it works. So that's pretty cool. So yeah, we're safe against lava and fire blocks now because we know that it works. So now what we want to do here is, so we're pretty much done, right? Aren't we? Because what we did here is we generated a safe location and we spawned the player to that location. That's all we needed to do, really. But also but that's actually not it. What we want to do here is also set the bounds of, how far we want to teleport a player. So let's make a configuration option so the player or the server owner can choose how far they want to teleport a player each time. Because currently we're only spawning them within the bounds of 1,000 blocks because we set it to be between 0 and 1,000. So yeah, we just want to make it so that the player owner or the server owner can choose in the config whether or how far they want to make the player spawn, right? So let's go ahead and do all of that. So we're going to make a config.yml right here. So new config.yml. There we go. And so inside of here, we're going to create an option. We'll just call it world border, where world border is true. So basically, this will just be an option saying if it's true, then that means that we want to limit how far the player can spawn. But if it's false, then we'll just spawn them within a range of 25,000 blocks because that's a pretty high number. But yeah, we'll set that up in a second. So first, I'm going to just have this here, and we'll say true if you want to limit how far players teleport. Okay, anyway, so that's what that is for. And then finally, after that, we want to limit, or we want to allow them to set the limit of how far they want to teleport, since they did indeed choose true. So border, and we'll just set it to like 200 blocks. And so since we have this configuration set up here, we want to make it so that they can, we want to make it so our program can access the configuration and then grab the values from there instead of using these 1,000 values, right? So we can go back and, well, first we need to allow the configuration to be loaded in our plugin. So we'll just go ahead and go back here into our main config, our main class here. So we'll do get config dot options dot copy defaults. So we're simply just loading our configuration to our plugin. So save default config. There we go. And so now what we want to do here is figure out how to use our config or access our configuration from our teleport utilities class. but we can't do it because we need to have an instance of the main class to be able to access our configuration, okay? So let's just go ahead and make a thing up here like we would do normally. So we'll just make an instance of the main class. So we'll do RandomTP plugin, just like that. And then now let's make a constructor for that thingy. So constructor, okay. And so now let's go ahead and try and access that constructor, or the instance of the main class, so that we can access our configuration. So we'll do plugin dot, and then we'll do git config, and then we could do get integer. So this will be the border that we set here. So border, right? That's an integer, of course, because it's a number. So border, like that. So that should access the configuration successfully. But we have an error here. It says non-static field plugin cannot be referenced from a static context. So that simply means we need to go up here and then change this to static. There we go. And so now we should be able to access plugin perfectly fine. And we can, okay? So now we can just go ahead and do that for the second one here. Boom. And now we can access the border that they want to set it to have, right? In the configuration. Oops, I don't know what I did here. But anyway, so let's try running this now. So I can't scroll for some reason. There's a little error here. I don't know why my scrolling's messed up. Anyways, let's go ahead and run this. Boom. Oh, my control button's stuck. That's weird. Alright, so if I did this correctly, we should be able to generate a config.yml within our plugin. And then also it should be able to access the border that we set it to have, so that they can so that the plugin can determine how far we want to teleport our player. So we'll just reload this now, and then let's see if it generated the config.yml. And of course it did perfectly. So let's open this up, and we can see that it has our, oops, reload that. It's not reloading. No. Alright, so here it is actually. Okay, so here it is. So we see we have our border 200, and then we have our world border of true. So we're just going to leave this for now. We don't need that yet. We're not using it yet, but we did use our border of 200. So let's test it out now. So we're just going to go ahead and do, so let's just go ahead and do /RTP. And there's an error apparently. So let's go ahead and check it out. I think I know what the problem is, right? So we can go back here to our teleport utilities class, and we can see here that we have a constructor here, right? And we use this constructor to be able to access the main class into this class, right? So what we need to do here is actually use this constructor, right? Because we're not passing anything yet. We're allowing it to be passed through the constructor, but we're not passing anything yet. So basically what I'm trying to say is we need to go back here and then make an instance of this class here, so we can pass it into that, instance of this class into that class, basically, okay? So just do what I'm about to do here, okay? So teleport utilities, we'll just call this utils is equal to new teleport utilities, and then for the parameter we're just going to pass in this, okay, which is going to be instance of this class, right? So that should allow this class to be passed into this class, so that we can use the configuration within this class, right? Hopefully that makes sense for you guys. So let's go ahead and run this. We'll do /RTP, and it works now, as you can see. And if you check the XYZ on my screen right now, it stays within the limits of 0 to 200, right? Because of course 200 is what we said to set it to have within the config.yml. So let's try changing the config.yml to make sure that it works correctly. So we'll change it to 2000 instead of 200, right there. So we'll just do Control S to save that, and we'll go back here and we'll reload the plugin. So that's reloading the configuration, and then now let's do it again. So RTP. And now it stays within the bounds of 2000, 0 to 2000, right? There we go, pretty cool. It never goes above 2000. So that's pretty cool. Hopefully you like that. So now it's able to be configurable. So let's also use the other option within the config.yml, which is the world border boolean here. So this will basically let the plugin know whether the owner wants to use a world border of 200 in this case. So we can go ahead and check that. So basically what we want to do here is check and see if they want to use our world border or not before we generate our XYZ value. So if plugin.getConfig.get boolean, and then we're going to pass in world border because that's the name of the boolean that we're accessing. So boolean. So if it's true, then we do want to use that world border. So we'll just go ahead and plug this into here because that's what we're already doing pretty much. So of course we have a little bit of a problem here because now we cannot access XYZ because it's inside the scope of this if statement. So what we're going to do here is get rid of this and then just create these variables outside of here, okay? Pretty standard. That's just a scope problem, So int y is equal to 0, and then int z is equal to 0. So now that's all good. So basically we're generating you know, a random location depending on the, you know, constraints that they set within the border option here. So because that's true, of course, but if it's not true, so else if, we'll just plug that into here. So if it's not true, so put that right in front of there, so make it so it's not true. So if it's not true, then we want to just generate a random location between 0 and 25,000, because that's going to be our random, you know, our defaults. So we'll do random dot next int 25,000, just like that. I put too many zeros, oopsie. Okay, so then y is equal to 150, and then z is equal to random dot next int 25,000. Awesome, so that's how that works, pretty simple. But just to reiterate, what we did here is we check and see within the config.yml whether the player or the owner wants to use a border or not. And if they do want to use a border, then we're going to check and see what they want the border to be, and then we're going to use that border to generate in a random location, right? So it doesn't go outside of that border, basically, right? So if the world border option is going to be false, meaning they do not want a border, then basically we're just going to set a default border of 25,000. So it's going to generate a location between 0 and 25,000 within the world, okay? Pretty simple stuff. So let's go and test all that out now, right? Oh, I see what we did wrong here. For some reason, we accidentally set the boolean name here to world boolean instead of world border. My mistake, so just go ahead and change this to world border instead of world boolean. Oopsie daisy. So anyway, we'll reload this and I'll be right back. Okay, so we'll do /RTP, boom, and now you can see it's still staying within the limits of 2,000. And so now let's go into our config.yml and change it to have no world border, so we can see if it goes to up to 25,000. So we'll just change this to false, so they do not want a world border. So now we reload that, and then now we do /RTP, and boom, now we see that it goes up all the way up to like 25,000, right? Because that's exactly what we set it to do. So we get some really big values now. So anyway, that works perfectly. So now we you know, enabled our plugin to have configuration options. So finally, but what we want to do here before we end this episode is make it so that it sends the player a message whenever they teleport, you know, telling them what their new coordinates are. And then also let's make it so that we can allow a admin to teleport another player, right? Of course, if they have permissions to do so. So let's try doing all of that. So we'll go back into our main RandomTP command. So the first thing we want to do here is check and see if they provided any arguments, meaning that if they did not provide any arguments, that means that they want to randomly teleport themselves. But if they did provide any arguments, we're going to assume that they want to teleport another player, and then we're going to teleport that player, okay? So let's go ahead and do that. So we'll just cut this, Control X, and then let's check and see if there are any arguments. So args.length is equal to 0. So if it's equal to 0, like I said, we don't have any arguments, so then we're just going to use what we did before. But if there are arguments, so else if args.length is equal to 1, meaning that there's a 1 argument, meaning a player's name, hopefully. So like I said, if they do provide 1 argument, we're going to assume that they want to teleport another player. So let's check and see if they have permission to do so. So player.hasPermission. Why can't I do anything? That's so weird. Oh, right here. That's why we don't have a thingy there. That's weird. Alright, that's better. Okay, so player.hasPermission, and we'll just say, we'll give it a name of rtp.other, so we can, they can check and see if they have that permission. If they do have that permission, then we're going to go ahead and teleport that player. So let's get an instance of that player. So player target, we'll call him target. Oh my gosh, player target is equal to, and then we'll just do bucket.getPlayer, and then we'll just pass in the, you know, the name of the player, which is going to be the argument. So args is 0, so the first argument, and it's going to be the player's name. So now we have an instance of the player that we want to teleport, right? So now let's go ahead and teleport that player. So we're going to simply do target.teleport, and then we'll just pass in teleport utilities, generate location, what's it called, target, right? So we're going to be teleporting that player to that target location. So that should do all of that. So let's test it out. Alright, so we're back. So we'll do /RTP, and it still teleports myself. But now let's try doing another player, like myself. So boom, and it does teleport me, of course. And if there was another player on the server, it should allow them to teleport, or should allow me to teleport them if there was another player, of course, if I provide their name. So anyway, now that we have that, like I said, let's make it so that it shows the new coordinates to the player that just got teleported, and just add some messages and stuff like that to make it more clean, right? So anyway, we'll go back here, and then we're going to add some messages like I said 2 seconds ago. Alright, so we'll go back here, and then what we want to do here is if they teleport themselves, we're going to send them a message telling them that that just happened. So chat color, we'll set it to red, so chat color red, and then we'll say teleported to random location, so that they know they were teleported to a random location, which they should know, but anyway. So now after that, we'll send them the new coordinates that they just got teleported to, and I'm just going to go ahead and copy and paste what I have here, because it's easier to type out. So that's basically just telling them all the coordinates, but of course I need to change this to the player's coordinates, so we need to get that. So we'll just do int x is equal to player.getLocation.getX, or yeah, get block x, and then int y is equal to player.getLocation.getBlock y, and then finally int z is equal to player.getLocation.getBlock z. So that's going to get the xyz of the player, and now we can simply plug him in right here, oh so smoothly, just like that. Alright, so that's going to tell the player their new coordinates. And then now let's do the same thing for the player down here that was also teleported by another player. So first we want to tell the player that did teleport the other player that the teleport was successful. And then finally after that we want to tell the player that was teleported that they were also teleported. So we'll just say target. And I'll just copy this out because it's easier. It's a lot of typing that I don't need to show. So instead we'll just change this to X, Y, Z. Alright, so that's going to do all of that for us. Alright, so it's going to do all of that for us. So let's test all of that out to make sure that the messages are being sent successfully, okay? And then after that we'll end the episode. We're going to teleport the player, so /RTP. And now it tells me teleported to a random location, new coordinates 1522064228888, or it's 808. So anyway, that tells us our new coordinates successfully. So now let's try doing that again and again and again. So it works every time, but now let's try teleporting another player. And since there's no other players on my server, I'll just do it to myself. And as you can see here, it says Illuminati just random teleported you, so I teleported myself basically. And then new coordinates, blah blah blah, player successfully, blah blah blah, okay? So that's pretty cool. I hope you liked all of this. I know it was kind of extensive and I went pretty fast, but at this point you should understand what's going on. If you have any questions about what I did, I'll be glad to help you. Just ask a question in the comment section below, or we have a Discord in the description also. Just go ahead and click the link down there, and then you can join our Discord server. We have about 104 people right now, so that's pretty cool. We're growing pretty fast. And besides that, we have all the code from today's episode within the description also, so click the link and then save it to your bookmarks or whatever, so that in the future, if you forget how to do anything like this, you can use it as a reference, okay? Because sometimes you forget things, and sometimes I forget things. But anyway, if you like this video, leave a like. If you want to see more, subscribe, and peace.